But yes, apparently the moment you guys have been waiting for, Mercedes Monet, Mercedes Mone, Mercedes Monet, guys. Should I start with the grade or kind of draw it out? I'm gonna draw it out. So, of course, starting from the jump, her coming in, big business, right? It had the whole show was built around her. Big business in Boston. I forget the name of the arena, but they went to the big arena, had a fantastic show out. It was in March on my birthday. Pretty sure March 13th it was. It was a great vibe, great excitement going into it. The speculation we had all had been really going back and forth on. We were all pretty certain it was going to be AEW, right? But there was a little bit of thought maybe potentially she could dip her toes into TNA ish for a little bit there. And since Trinity, Naomi, was in TNA there for a hot minute, nothing long term, like not even saying a year plus in TNA or anything like that. But having kind of like what she was doing with New Japan, kind of jumping in a little bit, getting her feet wet, just kind of not going through the motions in that negative route, but just going through the motions in the sense of getting her reps in, mingling with talent she never would have had the opportunity and mingling with, and just really going out there and just not like making a checklist, right? And just like knocking off different accomplishments, different companies, all that good stuff, right? She gets injured, sucks, breaks her, I think what breaks her ankle, something like that. Really bad injury. Not as bad as Adam Cole's, but took her out for a while. That's with the whole Willow Nightingale. That's how she ended up, or the story that she ended up going right into when she got into AEW. We'll get to here in a second. But there was a little bit of speculation, obviously, as well, that she could possibly go back with WWE in the sense that Vince McMahon is no longer there, right? Not going to get into the whole story, but what pushed her and Naomi out when they were the women's tag team champions in WWE. Pretty sure it was maybe Ronda Rousey. Vince and the team wanted Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, to lose a singles match against Ronda Rousey, I believe it was. I think it was like a qualifier match or something to that effect. Possibly going into the Elimination Chamber. I don't remember all these specifics, but I'm pretty certain that's what it was. And again, it's a singles match. You're the tag team champion. I kind of get both sides, right? But again, it wasn't just some Joe Schmo. It would have, and I even think they had like it wasn't just going to be like a one off loss or like a fluke loss. I think there's even going to be like a story built around it, something to that effect. Mercedes Sasha was not having it. It was my opinion. It was probably an accumulation of things up until that point. She was just like lack of other words. She was probably just like fuck this, like I don't need this shit. Like I'm out. Like no, like you're not taking me seriously. Like I'm done. Like losing to these people. Da da da. Like no. Like I'm Sasha Banks. I'm Mercedes. Like whatever. Like I know my worth. Da da da. Again, I'm just spitballing here. Probably didn't say any of that. That's just my dialogue. Vince probably like screw you, man. Whatever. I don't need you. Adios. Again, definitely not his dialogue, right? Dude probably doesn't even know what adios means. But my dog's having a dream in the background in case you hear any noises or any growling in the back. Yeah, so they dropped the titles, not in a match, but they're out. They being Mercedes, Sasha Banks, Trinity/Naomi. They're out. They're all doing their own thing. Trinity ends up in TNA. She's doing her own thing. Sasha Banks is traveling all over the world, doing her thing, enjoying her freedom. Cool. Happy for you. Great money. Money. Get your back. All that good stuff. Gets injured. Bummer. Wrestling against Willow Nightingale. That's big bummer. You know what I mean? It sucks. We do end up seeing her sitting in the audience at All In, which was interesting because we saw her sitting there in the audience, and then she just no mention of her after that, which just, again bonkers with AEW. But yeah, nothing after that. Fast forward to the rumors, right? Where it was kind of like a CM Punk thing at that point. You're pretty much giving it away without directly saying it, right? Big business, like I think on the graphic that they had, it was like boss with like two S's and like a dollar sign or something like that for like spelling out Boston, all that cliche stuff, right? Debuts, big deal. Obviously, it gets crazy reaction in her hometown. Gonna get a babyface reaction. Cool, good money, great money, big business. Off running, right? Like hit the ground running type situation. Next week, it's kind of weird. Kind of a weird promo. You don't really know how to really take it. It's kind of feeling forced in a way. And again, to be fair, like Sasha Banks was never known as like the strongest on the mic, but we all thought it was like one of the situations where WWE is hindering them. WWE has a crutch, is they're handcuffing them, right? Like you can only say but so you have a script, right? You can only say but so much. You don't have bullet points. You can't go out there and just speak your mind, speak from your heart type thing. She definitely did on that first night, I would say. But as the weeks went on, it just got a little bit more worse and just kind of more cringe, in my opinion. In the sense that you didn't know how to take her. So especially with the themes and like the vibe, right? So she comes in, Mercedes Moné, the CEO, but she's supposed to be a good guy, but who likes the CEO? Like what CEO is a good guy, right? So okay, but that's what we're supposed to be chanting. Like it's piped in CEO, okay, whatever. As it goes on, it just kind of gets more and more convoluted in the sense that it's one of those things where it's like you see one thing but you hear something else, and it's kind of like a mind fuck. It's like you're trying to be a good guy but you're not really being a good guy, you know? And is that what we're supposed to be thinking? Like, is that the story? Is that the point? Maybe it is. Okay, so you go along with it. The whole, in my opinion, the issue of it was right from the jump, starting off with Willow Nightingale, like trying to blame Willow for purposely injuring her. But then, like, she didn't want to necessarily say it. Like, she didn't want, she being Mercedes, like, Mercedes didn't want to necessarily, like, call out Willow at first, but then she did. But it was just one of those things where it's like, okay, so you're assuming that us being diehard wrestling fans, AEW fans, we either saw the match between her and Willow Nightingale or we knew of what the match and what happened, right? Like she got injured with Willow, but it was like a fluke accident, right? It's not like Willow did anything deliberately or anything crazy like that. But that's what was being presented to us in AEW. And that's just not Willow, you know? And then for a split second there, they wanted us to like tease the fact that, or the possibility that Willow was going to be a bad guy. And I just think absolutely not. Willow, you literally want to give Willow a hug. Like like it sucks that Bailey's gimmick was like the hugger, because if anyone could have like taken that hugger gimmick and ran with it as well, Willow would have been that person. But I love I could go on and on about my love for Willow, but I'm not going to right here, right now. But Willow is that type where you just look at her, in my opinion, and you love her automatically, right? Like the smile, like she loves wrestling, right? But to me, it's not cringe. I thought like she doesn't like she knows that boundary, right? Like she knows that fine line. But it's just not. It's you don't. The last thing you get from Willow is a vibe that like she does anything deliberately to hurt her opponent, right? Now again, when she had the street fight with Chris Statlander, that was a bit different situation. But like deliberately to like hurt your opponent, and when they had that match, like she respected Mercedes, so made no sense, right? And in my opinion, that's where the downfall for Mercedes truly started, because we didn't know how to really feel for her from jump. And it just kept getting worse from there. She had the match with Willow, which was a good match. Don't get me wrong, it was a good match. But then the shit with her and Dr. Britt Baker, which again, if you haven't listened to me in the past, I was a big fan of Dr. Britt Baker. She's not a ring general, right? But she really like carried the women's division, in my opinion, for AEW, especially in the early years when they needed a face. She was the face, you know, like if you love her or hate her, she was the face. Not to mention she's obviously a fucking dentist, right? So like just the respect that I have for her, next level. So I expected, first of all, I didn't expect for them, rather taking a step back, I didn't expect for them to go to the match between Mercedes and Dr. Britt Baker as quickly as they did, which I think that was the first mistake, but fine. I get it. It's a big show. You won a big match, and that's the biggest match that they have. So okay, fine. Wherever you want to put the blame. And I don't really care, to be honest with you. I don't care what happened behind the scenes, backstage. I don't care if Britt hates everyone. Everyone hates Britt. Everyone loves Mercedes. Everyone hates Mercedes. I really don't give a shit. I really don't care. What I care about is what's presented on TV. Whatever happened backstage, Britt apparently ended up getting fired, suspended for 2 weeks with some shit that happened potentially between her and MJF and MJF's girlfriend. I think the girlfriend's name is Alicia. His girlfriend's name is Alicia. I think that's her. Whatever. Doesn't again. I don't really care. Doesn't matter. That obviously put a damper in threw a wrench into things, right? The build just wasn't there, and it just really felt forced. The match was terrible, my opinion. Just not a good match. You could tell like the chemistry wasn't. Now there were some good moments in the match. Don't get me wrong, but just the flow of it just was not there, and it's just kind of left a bad taste in everyone's mouth, in my opinion. Again, in the majority of fans' mouth for Mercedes Moné going forward, because you start off with a convoluted story, then you transition into a story that's not really that beneficial, and you no substance to it really, and it's just like kind of forced, really. Because then even too, it was like okay, like Britt now, like Britt is our girl again, like okay, just a weird thing. And then we get Kamille, which we'll be definitely talking about Kamille up next. But then we get the introduction of Kamille. And again, starting off with Kamille, I thought it was fucking fantastic idea. It's a Shawn and Diesel type of situation, right? Kamille is coming in, she's going to be the heavy. If you knew of her of NWA, you already know her story. Just kind of piggyback off of that and go from there. And if you don't, okay, you can still piggyback off of the story from the NWA and go from there. She was Nick Aldis's his power, right? And his heavy. She ended up winning the championship, but she was a free agent. She had the opportunity to go to NXT, and she chose to go to AEW, which at the time she probably thought was a solid idea. Would love to know where her thoughts are now. She came in not hot, but I was excited for her. I was like, oh, this is great. Awesome. Good job. No, it was not good at all. Again, almost like within the first 2-3 weeks, there was dissension between her and Mercedes. Why? No idea. No idea. We learned Kamille can't drive a car. Like, it was just very, just like middle school writing, in my opinion. And it really like, okay, so you had the first chapter, the introduction, right? Barely the introduction. The introduction in the sense of, okay, like this woman's name is Kamille. She is partnered up with Mercedes now. Mercedes has hired her essentially to be the bodyguard. Okay, cool. Now essentially we should grow and go from there. But we didn't. We didn't get any more substance really. All of a sudden Mercedes is mad at Kamille, and the whole thing with Chris Statlander, who was a good guy forever. Then she randomly turned on Willow, which we didn't really know why. And then she randomly turned back, which, okay, fine. Kamille and Mercedes went through one of those fake walls in the back, and which led to rather Mercedes and Chris Statlander having a very good match to give credit where credit is due. Now we are here. Now we are here with Kamille and Mercedes. Again, we fast forward to Dynamite. Was it about a month ago now? Maybe around a month ago. Mercedes is on the stage with Tony Schiavone. Kamille comes out. She's in a sling. And out of nowhere, oh, I almost forgot. One of the weeks prior, this just ludicrous to me. Mercedes sends Kamille into the ring, and I'm blanking on who the wrestlers were, the female talents were. But Kamille gets in the ring and pretty much just stands in the center of the ring and lets these two women just beat on her. Because Mercedes told her to. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Really? Right now? Just blown away. But yeah, so they just made Kamille look like complete trash and like a complete goof. Speaking of goose, we'll get to one later on. And it's just everything, all the aura and all the badassery that you would have expected and that you maybe hoped and were going to get from Kamille and have established in Camille's position and her positioning with Mercedes, just completely just demolished between that week. And then Kamille came out and essentially was like, pretty much like, like, you can't fire me because I quit. The lamest shit. Like, it's like, no, like, you like, oh, you think you're stealing her thunder, like Mercedes' thunder because you quit? No, dude, like, you look like a complete chump. And I hate to say that because, again, another situation I had very high hopes for. Not high hopes, like, again, coming in and just running rampage, no pun intended, on the division. But coming in in the sense of being Mercedes heavy, and I thought that they could really get like damn near a year out of it, and they blew through it within 3 months, and now we haven't seen Kamille since. Don't know if she's truly injured. Don't know. Don't know. Just don't know. Don't know where Kamille is. Haven't heard from her since. So now that we went through the whole story of, kind of did a twofer there, of Mercedes Mone, Mercedes Moné, and Kamille, I will give Mercedes Moné an F. And originally, guys, I put a D down for Mercedes Moné. Actually, as I sat here and talked it all out a little bit more, I downgraded that. I'll use that D for the downgrade. I changed that from a D to an F. And again, I feel like I'm being very hard and very critical. Again, match-wise and ring, we have had some good showcasings, right? Her match with Willow Nightingale, the match with Chris Statlander, very good. The match with Britt Baker, not so great. The story and the character, though, is what's really killed it for me. And much like Okada, her and Okada are kind of like hand in hand for me in the sense of comparisons in this regard and grade wise, because, and I guess maybe not because I gave Okada a D and Mercedes, maybe I should give Mercedes a D. But I'm giving her an F solely in this. The difference between her and Okada is because she had the advantage being essentially like a native to the North American market, right? Where she already knew essentially what she needed to do, and it wasn't really an adaptation for her to the TV market. It was an adaptation just in the sense of going from WWE to AEW production. But that shouldn't affect your character. That shouldn't affect your promo. That shouldn't affect the ideas that you have, your presentation going forward. And yes, I think this is twofold, honestly. I think, yes, it's been creative and booking for Mercedes, but I think it's also maybe been some of her own input as well. And I think that maybe she was higher on some of the things that she had in mind than like the CEO gimmick, right? Then maybe she should have. And I get, like you're playing off of the boss gimmick. It's, I get it. I get the correlation. It just didn't hit. And I'm hopeful for her in 2025, but to be honest with you guys, like I really I don't expect much change. Like even if like we have an epiphany and I honestly don't even know what that would look like though, and that's my struggle. I hate to be so down on it and just so down in the sense that maybe she, like the letter grade could have been a D and I'm being a little bit more harsh than I should have. But I think that with the hype that she had coming in, because I think she even had more hype than Okada coming in my opinion. And just the downfall, really. It's going to take a lot to rehabilitate her, in my opinion. So that's why I give her an F, and I give Kamille an F as well. It just really, this sounds really bad. But I give them both an F. Obviously, I just went over Y for Mercedes, but I give Kamille an F for the presentation. She had, 2 matches, I think. The presentation was just terrible. Again, you had so much potential with this woman, bringing her in, being a badass, and just did nothing. And now she's been missing for maybe a month now. And I have a bad feeling we're not going to see her. And again, if she's injured, touche, and I get that. You need to tell us, though. The last thing we saw was she quit. She literally quit on TV. So my assumption as a fan is like, okay, she quit AEW then. So she's just not coming back? But she was just brought in like 3 months ago? I shouldn't be sitting here thinking about all this stuff. Like contract wise, I should be like, yo, like I should be looking forward to what she's gonna do next and how much ass she's gonna kick up Mercedes when she comes back. And now I'm just like, is she gonna come back? Or is she gonna be like Samoa or not Samoa Joe? Is she gonna be like Miro? Who the hell knows? So they both get Fs. That's my long story short of it.